Let's turn our attention to Major League Soccer and take a look at the Eastern Conference standings. It's where we find Steve Nicol's former team, the New England Revolution. Actually, not in a bad spot. They're in second place, but it's been a crazy couple months for the New England Revolution. Of course, earlier this week, Bruce Arena resigned as head coach and sporting director amidst an MLS investigation into insensitive and inappropriate remarks made by Arena. Here's what Arena had to say in a statement that he made, quote, "I know that I have made some mistakes, and moving forward, I plan to spend some time reflecting on this situation and taking corrective steps to address what has transpired. And while this has not been an easy decision, I'm confident that it is in the best interest of both the New England Revolution organization and my family that we part ways at this time." Much more on this story over on our website, ESPN.com. Our man Jeff Carlisle has been all over it from jump, and he's got lots more of the details. There you see the headline, New England players refusing to train amid Arena's exit. Here's a little excerpt from Jeff's article. There's some of the, of course, context. Bruce Arena resigning Saturday following a nearly 6-week investigation into allegations that we just mentioned. A report in The Athletic asserting that complaints filed by assistant coach Richie Williams were part of Major League Soccer's investigation into Arena. Sources telling ESPN that during a meeting between players and staff, which included Williams, technical director Kurt Analfo, president Brian Balello, and a representative from Human Resources, players asked Williams to elaborate on the extent of his involvement in the investigation. When Balello indicated that they couldn't respond to that question, the players reacted negatively to the lack of transparency and decided they would not train. All of that led to yet another statement, this time from the New England Revolution. The team itself, turns out, originally we thought it would be Richie Williams as the interim manager. Instead, it'll be Clint Pié. He was the head coach of the Revolution 2, the reserve team. He'll serve as interim head coach effective immediately. Marcelo Santos, another assistant coach of the reserve team, will also join the first team staff. Also worth noting, the Revolution have parted ways with a couple assistant coaches, Dave Vandenberg and Shaw Reed Joseph. There was another press conference today from New England. Let's hear from the president, Brian Balello, but first, technical director Kurt Analfo, as they spoke to the media.
Yesterday was a very long day for our club, right? So we had meetings that lasted for hours that were very productive. And at the end of it all, we just collectively decided mutually that it didn't make sense to go out in the field. And that's it. That was basically what happened.
Richie Williams is a valuable member of our organization, and he remains with the organization. As everyone can imagine, this has been a really difficult time for Richie these last few days and weeks. And we've offered Richie some time off during this window. In terms of his role with the club, I don't have anything to share with that today, but we're continuing to have conversations with Richie about his future role with the club.
What changed in the announcement on Saturday night that said Richie Williams would continue as interim coach, and then on to last night that Clint Pié took over?
I've been doing this a long time. I have a lot of experience in Major League Soccer. I have a lot of experience with group dynamics, especially team dynamics. And it became very clear to me the best path to move forward for our group to be successful was to make changes and have a fresh start. And that's what we did.
As I look at it from the outside, like the head coach resigned, none of us knows the details. The interim coach is replaced, 2 assistants are fired. We don't really know the whys. We only know the what. And it seemed from what happened yesterday that your players also kind of wanted more whys. Like, I guess I just want to put you guys on the spot and say, like, why don't we know more? And why is there no transparency? And I feel like, are you concerned that sort of hurts your public perception, especially with your fans?
I empathize with you. I empathize with our fans and with our players about that. As a league conducting the investigation, I have faith in the league. I have faith in their processes, and I understand their needs for confidentiality and matters in terms of, protecting subjects, witnesses, reporters, all those people involved in these investigations. So, in terms of their investigation, I had to refer people to the league. But I empathize with our fans and with our players and with the media about that.
All right, for more on this story, let's welcome in the aforementioned, excuse me, Jeff Carlisle. Jeff, I know you were on that press conference earlier today. It was your second New England Revs press conference in the last 24 hours. Did you get any more clarity from this one?
No. I mean, it was a lot of deflection. It was a lot of punting. Kurt Anolfo was asked point blank, why were Shawry Joseph and Dave Vandenberg fired? Why is Richie Williams no longer at least the interim manager of the first team? And all he could say was, I have a lot of experience. I know what I'm doing. I know about group dynamics, and this is the best way forward. I mean, so he didn't really shed any additional light on why these decisions were made. Certainly what I've heard is that, Richie Williams is at least perceived as having been behind this effort or, this move to have Bruce Arena investigated. I think the extent to which, the extent of his involvement is still up for debate, but, it's still unknown who told what when. I mean, those are still things that have to be fleshed out. So I would say this press conference today didn't really shed any additional light other than the fact that they have a lot of belief in Clint P.A. to move this team forward.
Jeff, it's interesting. I'm reading from the article here about the meeting between the players, the staff, that included, of course, Balello and Onofo. I mean, that seems like the real inflection point in going from Williams is going to see us through this season to Richie Williams is not going to see us through this season. Is that fair?
I think so. I think there was a real breakdown in trust between the players and Richie Williams. Certainly there was a schism that developed within the coaching staff. I think that's why you no longer see Dave Vandenberg and Shawry Joseph with the organization. And, I think there was a lot of, there was just a lot of disagreement about who did what, how to proceed. And so I think both Brian Balello and Kurt Anolfo decided that the best way forward is to make kind of a clean break almost with the previous coaching staff and to bring in Clint P.A. Kevin Hitchcock, I think, is the only player or the only assistant coach who was on the staff before and is still on the staff now. So, and he was the goalkeeper coach. So, I think basically Anolfo and Balello read the room. They listened to the players and just realized that this season was in serious danger of imploding if they didn't do something.
We obviously don't have a ton of details about what Bruce Arena is alleged to have said, so I don't want to ask you yet about his legacy because maybe we need some more time for that. But just if we think of kind of the reaction from around Major League Soccer, Bruce Arena is a critical figure in the history of this league. Jeff, what are you hearing from people around MLS?
I think there's universal dismay that this is how it's ended for Bruce Arena. Bruce Arena's been around a long time. There are always, two sides to Bruce Arena. I mean, he could be funny and charming and, engage with the media. And then there were times where, he would give the media a hard time. He would give, league executives a hard time. So there are always those two sides to it. But the thing that I keep coming back to is that he was a player's coach. That was his reputation. He was not so much an X's and O's coach, but he was a guy that could relate to players, that had a good feel for what combinations of players would work well. And so, I think as a coach, that's where his strength lay. And so I think there's just immense surprise and shock that this is how it's ended for Bruce Arena. He's had his ups and downs as a coach, to be sure, even in MLS. But look at the totality of his career. He's a guy that seemed to have cracked the code in terms of how to build successful teams in the league. And so I think that makes this latest development even more perplexing.
Stevie, they're in second place. Need a hero.
Oh.
You taking that call? Has anybody called yet?
No.
Well, they knew you were on vacation, that's why.
There you go, yeah.
That's why they're doing all these press conferences, buy themselves more time just to get to
I
it.
guess they probably waited till I got home.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I haven't heard.
It's a mess, huh? You hate to see your former team in this
I'll tell you
situation.
what, the biggest disappointment for me is that it seems to be between Richie and Bruce.
Yeah.
I would regard Bruce as a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. And to have to resign because of, obviously, a disagreement or words were exchanged between the two of them, an assistant coach, for me, it's hard to swallow.
Why?
Because I've had plenty of disagreements, arguments, tough conversations with assistant coaches of mine since I was coaching. The whole time I was coaching. Because when things are not going well, you have to get to the bottom of things. And you have to put on the table what you're thinking. And you don't always agree.
Right.
And when you don't always agree and you have two strong characters, then sometimes things are said that you wish you hadn't. So that's the biggest thing that disappoints me, that it seems like the two of them couldn't have a disagreement, but then it seems like one has taken it where it just shouldn't happen in a coach's room.
To be clear, we still, we don't know the details of exactly what was said between the two, but we do know.
It seems clear it's between the two of them.
Yeah,
it seems pretty. There is no way in a million years that nobody for 6 weeks has had any idea and still doesn't have any idea of what Bruce is supposed to have said, unless this is in-house and there's only a couple of people know. So it's an impossibility in this world that nobody knows unless it's that close of a problem.
Right.
And we're beginning to see that that's exactly what it is.
Arena does, in the end, resign. I think kind of what's shocking is those of us that know American soccer, know the histories of Bruce Arena and Richie Williams, these guys have been linked since the 80s when Richie was a player at the University of Virginia and Bruce Arena was the coach.
And then DC United, then coached together in New York, and so on and so forth. There's been a history between the two, and you would think that if indeed there was a pairing of coach and an assistant coach that would be very much in tune and in sync with each other, it would be them too. And so to speculate as to what was said, what wasn't said, who said what, and when, it's obviously difficult for us, and it would be inappropriate for us. I'm going to look at this from a perspective of the players, and beyond talking about Bruce Arena and beyond talking about Richie Williams. Here's a team that, as we just mentioned, second in the Eastern Conference. So it's a good team. It's a team that, if they get hot at the right time, they could potentially make a run. And make a run not only at the Eastern Conference, but potentially a run at MLS Cup. How do you go about doing that now? How do you go about trying to tell yourself and basically lie to yourself as players and say, let's focus on the task at hand. Let's focus on the game on the weekend. Let's focus on winning the Eastern Conference, or at the very least competing for the Eastern Conference and then competing in the playoffs. How do you go about doing that when all of this is going on? And when there is, and this is, I think, critical to the players, transparency. When you lose the trust of the players with the organization, when you don't believe what the organization is telling you, when that trust is broken, the players will not perform for you. It's simple as that. If the players don't believe that you have their best interest in mind, or they cannot trust you as an organization, the players will not play for you. They will not deliver the results when it matters. And this whole idea was like, well, this could be a rallying cry. This is when the players come together. That's not how it works. That's not how it works inside a locker room. That's not how it works inside a club. So this could be what may have been a really good season for the New England Revolution. If they get hot in the playoffs, could end up being a really disappointing end to what may have been a really good outcome.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.